I'm going to take the meat off the bone here. Cutting at just down to the bone part, using my fingers to pull back the meat as I'm cutting. And now lay it flat and cut along the board. Basically kind of just scrape it off. Okay, stock pot. And anju, shoulder. You can save yourself a lot of money by cutting down your own chicken too. If you have the skill and the time, much easier. You get a better quality. You get different cuts, different purposes. And it's cheaper. It's cheaper. You do it yourself. This one I got the keel bone there. The other, you can cut from this side, doesn't really matter, whatever you're really most comfortable with. The key point is to stay close to the bone using the tip of the knife. So it's up one, up one, up one. Try not to, I guess you could, but it's much easier to go back and forth. Because the key point is you want the chicken breast. You don't want to leave a lot of meat on the bones. Come to that point. There. Now here you notice I got a little piece of cartilage. Be careful of that. That can go in the stock pot. Okay. Stock pot. You got the legs. Once again, these are fine with bone on. You can leave them for the bone on, if you're gonna, depending on your recipe or what you're going to use them for. Take off the fat. Right. Chicken's very easy to cut apart. These are nice for grilling or frying. You know, you can leave the skin on for frying. Ooh, careful. Okay. Paillard, chicken breast, thigh meat, leg meat, whole pieces. This is basically the only garbage that we have. This is going to go in our stock pot. This is garbage can. This is stock. It's the neck. You got side dishes. You got soups, sauces. You got entrees, appetizers, salads, soup. Right? Appetizer, main dish. This could be main dish too, depending on what you do. Okay? That's fabricating a chicken. It's easy to do. It's not hard. Key point, using your point of your knife. Set the key point. Try not to leave a lot of gogi on there. Now, once again, we're going to make stock out of this. So, once again, this is not garbage. We're going to make some money with that. We'll make money with this, make money with that, make not money with that. That we got to throw out. That's not bad. That's not bad. We'll have bones to throw in. Okay? That wraps that up, and then next edition, we'll start talking about stocks. Okay, great. Now we're in the kitchen. Before we talked about it and showed how to fabricate chicken, here's our chicken bones. This is our leftovers, our chicken skin and fat, which we're not going to use for stocks. This can, like I said, be anju or anything. We're going to put it in today's stock because we really have no other use for it. This, garbage. We don't need that. That's for sure. This is what we need. What else do we need? We need mirepoix and sachet de spice. And here we go. Mirepoix, carrots, celery, and onion, sachet of spice. Now this is called thyme sprig. That's a sprig. This would be a thyme stem. Just the woody part. In this case, what we're going to do, we're going to need the whole sprigs. It's fine. To me, too, besides celery, thyme is a very Western flavor. We need some parsley stems, not the green part. All right, I'm going to rinse these off. Garlic. 2 is fine. 2 or 3 is depending. Huchu. Not too much, you don't want to make it spicy. It's all about balance, all about equal flavors. And bay leaves. Once again, the bay leaves are a very important flavored ingredient. These 5 items. A sachet of spice that I use in my kitchen. They're pretty standard in most Western kitchens, but a lot of chefs use rosemary when they talk about chicken stock. If you work in a kitchen and the chef says put rosemary in, sure. That's about the only variations. Sometimes, once again, more and less. This is, believe it or not, is a lot of garlic. In Korean cooking, it's really not, but in Western cooking, garlic is used very lightly. Carrot, celery, and onions. Once again, we don't use the leaves. We're going to rinse. Now, if you're in a busy kitchen that uses a lot of celery for soups and salads and things like that, this is perfect for stocks. This type of ends. Even this. Well, this is suitable for sandwich making or anything like that, that's for sure. But a lot of times, you just take a whole head of celery and just cut this off, and this would go into stocks, and this would go into anything else. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to use this all for our stocks. Now, I think you guys heard the term kankuse. Kankuse means rough cut. In Korea, kankuse means kankuse tomatoes, where you peel a tomato, you clean it out, and you chop it. But kankuse means anything rough chop. And for stocks, you rough chop. Don't cut too small. That's a lot of times a problem too. So some people like sit there. The problem with that is that even after an hour, if it's too small, it's going to release too much of it. You want large pieces. For stocks, definitely no reason. As long as it's washed, it's a washed carrot, then you don't have to worry about. A little big piece, take care of that. Yeah, that's fine. This one's a little big. Once again, consistency and size is what you want. 25, 25. Now what we need, 25, 25. And now we need 50 of the onions. Once again, when we talk about cutting onions before, a lot of times chefs use the peelings for stock. I don't particularly agree with that because a lot of this is not very clean. You don't know how it's been sprayed or anything like there's bug yuck on it or anything. I don't recommend it. But if you work in a kitchen and chef says use that, you say, yes, sir. Absolutely. Okay. Same idea, but here's the stem end. This you don't have to worry about. We're going to rough cut. So you just want to. That's 25, just a little more. $50, $25, $25. you're looking for an average ratio. You got to be very careful. This is actually a lot of mirepoix for this type of bones right here, because once again the recipe calls for a lot more bones. But if you saw the size of this chicken was pretty small, once again, well, that's okay. This ratio is fine. You don't want to overdo the onions. You don't want to overdo the garlic, because those two things will be the very strong flavor enhancement. Now we're talking about pots. In class, we're going to be using these aluminum pots. These are good pots. These are very standard, industry standard pots type of thing. But when you're cooking something for 4 hours, aluminum is not necessarily the best thing. Stainless steel is, especially if you do like spaghetti sauces and things like that. The beef stock I'll use this for, because the cooking time for beef stock is 8 hours. We're talking 4 hours to 8 hours, twice as long. I'm going to go with the aluminum pot right now because it seems to make more sense than that. Step 1, rinse the bones. Don't need that. Cold water. Now some chefs will blanch the bones first. Blanching means to cook quickly the first time and throw it out. You do that in Korean cooking a lot of times when you do like goregontam. You soak the bones in water overnight, and you boil them once, and then drain the water and then throw it again. Once again, there's no right or wrong. It's up to what the chef wants to do. I myself, just make sure you rinse the bones well enough. Blood itself, the chicken blood itself will help purify and clean it. So about this much bones, you're going to bring it up to this button here. Cold water, we always start out with cold water. Culturally, more than factually. Up to the button and over the button. Okay. The bones should float. Once again, this is going to simmer for 3 hours. When it's done simmering, these bones are going to basically be out of the water, where you're going to add a little more when you add your mirepoix. A quick note about the stoves here. And they're burning nice and blue. You want a blue flame. You see how this is burning yellow? Yellow is going to blacken the pot, plus it gives out very bad gases. So if it's something you're going to cook for a long time, you look for a nice hot blue fire, right? What you're going to do is keep it high for the first, until it boils. You're going to wait for that to come to a boil. You'll let it boil for a minute, and then we're going to let it simmer. So I got 3, 2, 1. Start.
On it. It's already gone.
Okay. Okay, great. Here we're coming to our first boil. As I said, the first step, you rinse the bones, right? You combine the water and the bones. You bring to a boil. It's a simmer now. It's coming into a hard simmer. This is a low boil. Now it's going into a hard boil. And you let it hard boil for a minute. Don't let it boil over. That's a hard boil. And that will clean it, and you can see everything coming up. You can skim it now at this point for the first minute. Once you add the mirepoix, the sachet, the spice, you cannot really skim it at all. I'm going to do this maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times. It depends how much. More and more fat's going to be coming off. But the key point is a clear stock. And a clear stock is only achieved by removing the extra fat that's floating on the top. See, more and more comes up. Don't super skim it. You don't want to put a lot of stock water in there. You can take the pot too and move it off to the side, and that's going to boil on this side and push all the fat and impurities to this side. It makes it a little easier. There's a French term called dépouillage. This is actually a term for that. Okay. Let that boil, hard boil for 1 minute, and then cut to a simmer. And the simmer is very low. This is a little hard simmer now, but I turned down the flame, and you can see the bubbles getting slower and slower, and that will take some time. This one's going to go now for 3 hours with me skimming it periodically, make sure it's clean. Cut. Okay, you see now I'm coming back to a hard boil. We're going to let that bring it to a hard boil for just even 30 seconds at this point, because we really just have the vegetables in there. The chickens are real concerned about bacteria. Right. If you can, it's a little difficult. If you can skim a little. Don't worry about it at this point. Bring it to a hard boil. Now we're going to simmer it for 1 more hour. And once again, it's a slow simmer. If you need to add water, that's fine. I didn't have to add water because of the slow simmer. If it simmers too hard, now you're almost making like tea. You want this nice, gentle simmer like this. This is real nice. Okay, now we got the chicken stock going. We cooked it for 3 hours with the bones alone only, and then we added the mirepoix and sachet of spice. Carrots, celery, and onions, 50, 25, 25. 50 onions, 25 carrots, 25 celery. Sachet of spice, 5 items. Once again, some chefs are different, but it basically sticks the same way. Crushed garlic, parsley stems, thyme sprigs. I know stems and sprigs, I don't know if you bay leaf, and peppercorns. And we got that going now for an hour. It's simmering. Take a good look at this. This is a beautiful simmer. This is a very, very nice simmer. And you see, because I did all the skimming on it earlier, there's very little fat that's going to be left over, which is fine. It's fine. That's very nice. That's very nice. Okay, now you turn it off, and we're going to strain it. Right now, there's 2 typical types of strainers. Right? This is a fine chinoise, and this is a chinois. Chinois is a French word for China cap, which is a funny name, but that's where it comes from. These holes are fairly large. This is very, very small. I prefer using this for sauces and things like that. But straining socks, you can use the larger one on. Very nice color. Very nice color. Be careful, obviously, with straining it. Now there is a lot of flavor still hanging out on this. So you take a ladle and gently push. Now you might look at it and go, oh chef, come on, there's not a lot coming out of there. This is 4 hours of cooking time, which is a lot of gas, a lot of energy, a lot of time. You don't want to throw anything out. You really don't. You can let this drip for quite some time, and it will drip for 15 minutes. We'll still put out some food. You don't want to mash it too hard, that's for sure. Again, you don't want to do that. Okay. As you can see there, very, very nice chicken stock. Nice color, nice and clear, not milky color. I got some leaves in there. Whoops. It was at the bottom of the ladle. I'll just put it through here and I'll take it out again. There we go. Okay, chicken stock, the foundation of all soups, most soups, I shouldn't say all, but almost all soups. A good stock makes a good sauce. A good sauce makes a good entree. A good entree makes a good restaurant, and a good restaurant makes good money. Okay? I like that. That was kind of nice. Chicken stock, my favorite. Brown stock. A general term, right? Because it could be veal. This is a veal bone, right? Beef, which I'm demonstrating for you now, or lamb bones. But you could make a brown chicken stock. There's nothing wrong with that. Brown pork stocks are very, very nice. We don't use much of either of those in Western cooking, but I've used brown chicken stock a lot because I love the flavor of roasted chicken. And you make like a roasted chicken noodle soup or something like that is very, very nice. If you remember in the chicken stock too, we had carrot, celery, and onions, 50, 25, 25. That never changes. What changes here is the tomato paste, which we used in Pinsay, red wine, and a little oil, which is different than chicken stock. What we got is just a generic bottle of red wine. Now, if you've been in my wine class or you've seen the wine video, there's definitely ways of opening bottles of wine. And one way of opening it, if you're in the back of the house, is that you just kind of muscle off the top. You just take off the capsule, you throw that away. This is for a kitchen. This is designed to use many bottles many times. It's a large handle for pulling things up, right? So it's, once again, not very pretty as opposed to like wine service. But if you're opening up 24 bottles of wine, you want something like this that's not going to cut your hand, that you can use. Same principle. You take it. Let me get a little closer. In the wine class I demonstrated, you take the point, you put the point in the center, then you turn it up. That guarantees you to get it into the center. It's hard to see there, but if it's not in the center, you could end up breaking the cork. Snapping it in, snap, 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 up to the shoulder, just to where it disappears. And put it between your legs and pull. All right, very easy. Once again, one bottle here. Now, if you're going to be opening up 24 bottles, you're going to really like to have one of these. If you have the Waiter ones, the Waiter bottle opener is very thin. It's, once again, buy cheap, you get cheap. This is not a very expensive one, but it's a very good professional one. It's very heavy. Comes with a case. Put it back in there. You got the cork. You take the cork and you cut it. Just cut a V onto it like this. Cut it flat, flat. You put it in, and you have yourself an automatic pourer. Okay. So we're going to use the red wine. Right. Now, basically everything is pretty much the same at this point except for cooking times. We're going to have a sachet of spice, which are going to be 2 bay leaves, 2 garlic crushed, parsley stems, 2 sprigs of fresh thyme, and 4 peppercorns. Once again, this doesn't really change that much. If you have more bones, obviously, you're going to add more meal part, more sachet of spice. It's all about ratios. And the key point is just don't overkill it with one flavor. You might like garlic, but not everybody wants it. Plus, a stock is not the end product. If you notice, stocks don't contain any salt. Right? We don't put any salt in there. So it's only the beginning. Once again, rinse and dry the bones. I showed you that. We washed them quite well. I actually rubbed them quite well because of the bone dust. And I just pat them dry. Right? We roasted them in the oven. Okay, what I got here is 2 kilos. We have 2 kilos of beef bones. Now this strapping you see a lot. This is very common strapping. And you see a lot of times people cutting them like this and stuff like that. You don't really have to. These things kind of open very easily. You just flip them over, you grab that tab, and you pull. Okay? The less you're using knives cutting things, the less the chance of you cutting yourself. It's as simple as that. And these things basically just pop right off. So let's see what we got. Marrow bones. Marrow bone. Look familiar? Yeah, that's a nice size one too. And if you look at it closely, you can see a lot of this dust, bone dust, because these are cut on bandsaws by machine. And they're very, very dusty. That's for sure. So what the first step you're going to do is you're going to rinse the bones. these are nice bones. These are really nice bones. Once again, you can smell it. It should smell like steak. It shouldn't smell off, rancid. Rancid means spoiled, because a lot of times people look, a lot of times the stuff does not handle that well. These are marrow bones. This is like a fatty item in here. You'll see after I roast it, half of this will shrink away. And this was actually used for a garnish in French consommes. It's like a chewy little rubber thing. Marrow bones are hard to find. Usually when you order beef bones, usually you end up with this kind of. Ooh, look at that. We got some gogi on there. That's good. This is usually what you get. Marrow bones are usually a specialty item. Like I said, in the West, if you order stock bones, you're going to be getting this type of bone. This has a lot of fat on it. Don't worry about the fat or trimming or anything like that. But these are marrow bones. These are great for soups. That's for sure. Rinse in cold water. Rinse well. Don't worry about any kind of this kind of fatty or anything like that. That's going to help brown it, because we're going to be making the brown beef stock.